everyone. I'm the Sega Scourge, and it's my great pleasure to once again say, welcome back to Sonic What If, for the next installment of the What If that started them all. At long last, I bring you part 6 of What If Sonic never lost the Werehog form. I'm still getting back into the groove here, so bear with me if I'm a little bit rusty. I know my customary MO is to begin with a brush up of what happened previously, real in-depth like, but this time I'm just gonna keep it brief and mainly touch on key aspects that happened at the very end of part 5, the Gen story. I'll be honest, I just want to get into this. I've been dying to get into this, and I'm sure you guys probably want the same. So, last time, the Werehog said, "It's Werehogging time," and Werehogged all over Eraser Djinn. As their battle concluded, Sonic found himself stuck in a desolate expanse of white space. Upon glancing at Chip's trusty bracelet, Sonic realized that it had gone dark. Its usual glimmer had for some reason faded away, leaving him discouraged, lonely, and exhausted as he ran without end. But he refused to give up, and despite his Werehog half holding him back, he attempted to use his speed to make an escape. Surprisingly, for reasons not yet clear, this actually worked. His momentum increased dramatically, leading to a burst of energy that propelled him out of the void and back into his own world. But after returning, things only got more distressing, especially considering that the light of Chip's bracelet, his connection to his lost friend, remained extinguished. Sonic found that he was still in his Werehog form, unable to turn back, despite the fact that the sun was shining down on him. The lump of dark Gaia that lives within him has grown in efficacy to the point that it's now affecting him during daylight too, and his mental health has definitely taken a hit because of it. Since then, life seemed different to him somehow. Sights, smells, tastes all seem duller and less joyful. To add to this, Sonic hasn't been sleeping. Not that he's avoiding sleep, he just hasn't slept. Like, at all. He hasn't even let out a random yawn. This is kind of good news to him. He misses taking naps, but at least he won't have to deal with sleep terrors anymore. Sonic, the now permanent Werehog, has been knocking around at Tails' woodland workshop. The Fox Boy has resumed where he left off, working tirelessly to try and cure Sonic's condition. So much so that he suspects he's on the cusp of a prospective remedy. But the treatment needs more fine-tuning before Werehog trials can commence. You see, Tails made a breakthrough discovery sometime before the Time Eater snagged him. When Werehog Sonic engages in any sort of violent action, his body gives off surplus amounts of particles known as Dark Gaia Force. This is the basis of Tails' research, and he's trying to develop an inverse of it, a Light Gaia Force, using samples gathered from the unique composition of Chip's bracelet. This could then be administered to Sonic in stages, like a chemical therapy that will slowly eat away at Dark Gaia's essence. All in all, it's looking kinda promising. However, all this progress is abruptly halted by another brewing predicament. The surrounding wilderness has become devoid of its usual abundance of wildlife. Amy and Knuckles have also been in touch, echoing the same concern. Given the very short list of individuals with a flair for animal abduction, the obvious culprit is, of course, Eggman, who gave the heroes the slip at the end of the Generations story. Sonic eagerly welcomes the chance to stretch his legs and arms. There's no sick days when it comes to heroing. Innocent creatures need saving from tyranny. There's no time for a pity party. Plus, let's be honest, I think he just wants to kind of distract himself, so to speak. Tails is less keen, not out of a lack of consideration for the missing critters, but rather his over-consideration for the big disheveled critter right in front of him. Sonic's own needs rarely outweigh the needs of others. It's that very goodness that's kept the darkness at bay for this long. That said, when it comes to Sonic, goodness and stubbornness seem to be interchangeable. He's never really been one to outwardly talk about his feelings, and He's just putting on his usual brave face for the sake of his little bro, to keep him from worrying. Unfortunately, Tails is attributing Sonic's guarded behavior to his own shortcomings, presuming that he isn't doing enough to help him, and feels too nervous to confront him on these issues. You could say this is bad on Sonic's part, ego, pride, him wanting to hold on to his uncompromising stature, and you'd be right to a certain degree, but there's another way to look at this, and that's, in nature, prey animals tend to conceal signs of injury, disease, and pain to prevent them from being perceived as weak by watchful predators. And in this case, there is one predator that is always watching. Perhaps Sonic is afraid that if he shows any signs of vulnerability, it may seize the opportunity to finally devour him. But no matter how much Sonic says he's in tip-top condition, Tails is the one who's been doctoring him. He has all the physical exam data, and those figures paint a very different picture. Sonic's indefinite wear form has his body under a huge amount of pressure. On top of not needing sleep, he seems fine, but that's why it's so alarming. The piece of Dark Gaia in him essentially works like a type of energy steroid, adrenalizing his physiology, meaning Sonic's body is so amped up that he doesn't realize how much he's being affected. Tails fears that if the Werehog keeps pushing himself, something might finally give out. He even theorizes that it could be significantly reducing Sonic's life expectancy. Tails tries to emphasize the importance of not overexerting, but soon admits defeat in the face of the Werehog's adamance. There's just no point going back and forth. Besides, it's not like things could get any worse. Together they fuel up the tornado and head out, soon sighting the Eggmobile hoisting away a prison egg and engaging in an aerial raid that leads them to the Lost Hex, a celestial body concealed in the clouds. As Tails goes in for a landing, Sonic, against Tails' advice, decides to bail early and do some ground reconnaissance. He quadratically frolics across Windy Hill, slinging through the tubular terrain. Not long after, he touches down on a flat spell of acreage, having caught up with Eggman again. But this bad egg comes in a pack, a whole posse of rapscallions. The Deadly Six stand to attention, reviewing the stocky surface dweller they've heard so much about. While the other Zeti gloss over the Werehog as you might any large vertebrate, Zavok examines him with interest. He feels something, a primeval wickedness suppressed within this furry creature. Zavok is somehow sensing the piece of Dark Gaia in Sonic. He turns to Master Zik, sharing a look, as he too has detected the mystique of this hidden malice. As per the original game, Eggman goes to instruct Zaz to show this blue pest how they do things up here. But before the Doctor can issue the order, another Zeti contests the matchup.
No, this one's mine.
Zavok steps forward, explicit in his desire to be the first to engage in single combat with the Werehog.
Well, aren't you eager? I was hoping to save the best for last, but I suppose needs must when the devil drives. Knock yourself out.
Master Zik casts a satisfied sneer as he, alongside the rest of the Zeti, depart with Eggman, leaving Sonic and Zavok to duke it out alone. They circle and size each other up. Sonic actually compares Zavok's shape and stature to another adversary he's faced in Were form, Baker, the phantasmal fusion of ghosts Wu and Su. He recalls how they gave him quite a bit of trouble initially, but that was largely due to their ability to turn unseen to the naked eye, an ability this Zavok character presumably doesn't possess. Sonic then marches forward, wheeling his arm and closed fist in a swaggering fashion. His arm extends, and his closed fist hurtles at high speeds towards the imposing Zeti. Yet, to Sonic's surprise, Zavok is stood still, seemingly playing chicken with the oncoming punch. Then, at the last possible second, he smoothly turns to the side, and the punch meets only air as it sails by. The Werehog reels in his appendage, surprised by the hulking hostile's evasive reflex. From the top, Sonic flings out another punch, but once again, Zavok swivels in place, offering nothing but a faint scoff in retaliation. Sonic's starting to get a little ticked off now. He lets loose with a barrage of continuous straights with all the ferocity he can muster. Yet, the Zeti leader demonstrates some formidable footwork, ducking and weaving under and around each. It's becoming increasingly evident that Zavok's no slouch. This is gonna be tough. Suddenly, a dark ball zooms into the scene and, recognizing the Werehog, whizzes around him. It's a black bomb wisp. Sonic's happy to see the little aliens again, realizing that some wisps emigrated after the amusement park stuff, and some must have made their home here on the Hex. The bomb wisp seems to want to help, and disappears into Sonic's chest. His nails turn bright red, and his fists and upper arms transform, becoming large, black and round. With the color power of Black Bomb, Werehog Sonic builds an explosive charge and throws a missile punch, the ground shaking from the force. But even after all that, his arm elongates and Zavok dodges at the last moment, leaving Sonic's fist to hit a nearby hill instead, the impact sending a detonation of checkered stone blocks flying everywhere. The black wisp droops out of Sonic, dizzied, and rolls away. Zavok's just looking, not saying anything, and with this really down-your-nose kind of attitude, he actually begins to leave, determining that this dumb beast isn't worth his time.
Hey, wait a second. You can't just walk away. I'm not finished with you. Get back here and come at me like you mean it.
Zavok doesn't respond. The Werehog, furious and humiliated, leaps towards him, aiming to close the distance on all fours while his back is turned. He pounces, claws flaunted, alternating between punches and slashes in a manner so rapid it should be impossible to dodge them all. Yet, in spite of this, not one of these attacks even slightly graze a hair on Zavok's head.
That's it. I've toyed with you long enough.
Zavok thumps Sonic with his open palm, sending him slewing backwards, his spiked shoe bottoms grinding up dirt. Sonic the Werehog is being made to look like a joke, outmaneuvered at every turn. He plants his feet, regains traction and balance, and then... The Werehog stares hollowly, his expression laden with horror, trying to choke out a sound. The world around him seems to shudder to a halt as Sonic looks down, deep pain coursing through him. It's then that he sees why. Zavok's horn has impaled him right through the chest. Zavok withdraws the barb, and the light quickly leaves Sonic's eyes, his now lifeless body crumpling to the grass. Zavok displays a hint of disappointment, giving one last contemptuous glance as he leaps away. And that's where we're gonna end this story for right now. So, what did you guys think? I'm kidding. Minutes pass as Sonic remains motionless. But suddenly, he jolts, like hit with a defib, and the darkness within him stirs to life. A spout of purple energy emanates from within, and the gaping hole in his chest closes up. Sonic's eyes flicker open, and he awakens, rising from his grave, gasping and coughing profusely. He pats his hands across his torso. There's no puncture, no scar or anything. Sonic gets a weird feeling in his heart. He figures that the dark energy must have responded to his wound. He's relieved, but won't give Dark Gaia the satisfaction of his thanks. There's no way the malevolent force saved him out of the goodness of its heart. There must be a more sinister reason. He regroups with Tails and gives him the lowdown on the Deadly Six, notably withholding the part about him, dying. Together the pair press forward, proceeding into the Lost Hex's arid desert ruins. From a hiding spot, they witness an exchange between the Zeti and the nefarious Doctor. Zavok smugly declares that Sonic has been snuffed out, but Eggman dismisses the notion, and if Sonic is dead, well, he'll be very unhappy that he wasn't present for the spectacle. Dissatisfied with the Six's performance, the Doctor brandishes the cacophonic conch, a mysterious shell emitting a sound so agonizing that it brings the Zeti to heel. Seizing the opportunity, Sonic darts out from cover, extends his arm, and snatches the conch from Eggman's grasp. An argument erupts, with Eggman demanding Sonic return the carapace at once, All the while, Zavok looks on with rekindled interest, astounded that this furball is alive and kicking. The Zeti revolt begins as they take control of Eggman's mechs, showering the scene with laser fire and knocking the Eggmobile out of the air. Zavok and Master Zik opt to dispatch the remaining Zeti after a fleeing Eggman, Orbot, and Cubot. But with the conch in hand and realizing how it works, Sonic and Tails could easily subdue the Zeti. But Zavok knows that too, and so he goads Sonic, claiming that he's afraid, that he can't face him without a one-up or another little helper. Against the protests of Tails, Sonic takes the bait and crushes the cacophonic conch in his hand, a gesture to show Zavok that he won't even need it. That might come back to bite him. Tails pleads for Sonic to reconsider, but with resolute furor, Sonic tells his friend to stay out of it. He's taking this guy down. The desolate wastes become a battlefield as Zavok and the Werehog clash once more. But, like last time, the fight tilts out of Sonic's favor. As before, he whips and flails his elasticated arms, slashing. But Zavok sidesteps everything and actually starts to laugh at him. The Werehog's blood boils, his eyes glow, and his body is covered in a blue aura as he uses the full extent of his power, Unleashed mode, in a desperate bid to gain an upper hand. But it's no good. The Zeti warrior is just toying with him. Then, Sonic heaves and skids backwards, doubled over from a gut punch. He tries to counter, but again he's slugged. Zavok begins to retort, peppering him, throwing titanic blows that leave the Werehog disoriented and scrambling to defend.
I don't get it. Why can't I hit you? You speak as if this is a fight.
Tails, witnessing Sonic's peril, tries to jump in. However, Master Zik intercepts the fox, knocking him to the sand with a pained cry. The Werehog begins to succumb to the repeated punishment. His jaw is torqued by a chin hook, shocking his nerves. Zavok uses this opening to straddle and clasp Sonic by the neck, squeezing his throat with both powerful hands. Sonic struggles against his grip, but his muscles give out. Amidst Tails' desperate cries, Sonic is asphyxiated and blacks out. He's been defeated by Zavok for a second time in a row. Some unspecified time later, Sonic comes to inside a prison egg in transit. He's being hoisted airily by badniks across the thundercloud expanse of Sky Road. Sonic's thoughts race, not only for his own predicament but also for the safety of Tails. He instantly tries to escape, but his attempts are in vain, as this capsule was specially designed to contain and transport the Zeti. Alone and in isolation, Sonic reflects on his twofold defeat at the hands of Zavok. He feels disheartened, and doubt creeps into his mind. These beatdowns and the struggle against the darkness have taken a toll on his spirit. He lifts his arm and looks at Chip's bracelet. I'm on my own here, pal. Could really do with a light at the end of the tunnel. Just give me something. Anything. Sonic awaits some kind of sign, but nothing. The stone remains pale and lightless. Dejected, he sits hugging his knees, head down. Like I said at the start, it's been tough for him lately. This whole time, this whole what if, whenever this Werehog stuff's got on top of him, he could just glance at the bracelet, like a coping mechanism, and instantly he'd feel okay. But now, in its darkened state, it's just another reminder of how wrong everything's gone. Suddenly, explosive sounds come from outside the pod. Sonic holds on for dear life as the metallic shell trembles and descends rapidly, crashing into a piece of floating ground below. The capsule pops open, and to Sonic's surprise and relief, there stands Tails, come to set him free. Turns out he managed to get away after Sonic's defeat. Zavok then carried the Werehog off, and Tails tailed him, freeing various animals as he went. Sonic explains that he only just came to and asks how long he was out. To his surprise, The fox reveals that it's been nearly a whole day since what happened in the desert. Sonic's been out cold for that long. Sonic acknowledges his lapse in judgment, regretting not listening to Tails earlier. But Tails dismisses the apology, saying that he's used to Sonic running off on his own by now. Tails then sheds light on the Hex's happenings and says that they need to get to Eggman's geothermal base of operations to shut down something called the Extractor before it's too late. Tails came across Eggman during his journey, and the doctor informed him of the device and suggested that they team up. Tails outright refused and said he'd shut it down without the villain's help. Besides, we know that Eggman only needs Sonic to get him past the Zeti and would then betray him. Tails knows what's up. Sonic contemplates his strategy against Zavok, wondering if he has some secret source of power. Tails says that he scanned Zavok using the Miles Electric, and the data indicated that Sonic's power should be on par with, if not greater than Zavok's. So why is Sonic losing? Sonic thinks hard about how the Red Zeti fought him, and as he does, suddenly, he realizes something. Sonic and Tails cross over Sky Road, the territory proving difficult for the Werehog to get around. What with all the hovering clusters being so spread apart, he can't stretch his arm long enough to grab onto something and get a good swing going. Plus, he's a bit too heavy for Tails to carry. Luckily, a Crimson Wisp comes to his aid, bestowing the power of Crimson Eagle. The Werehog's arms sprout feathery wings, which he flaps in one big gust and takes off, pitching and soaring towards the volcanic heart of the Hex. His form, not unlike a certain divine beast of Chunnan, and, just like that creature, he has a certain degree of control over fire, doing flaming barrel rolls that take out oncoming Valkyrie formations. As he touches down, the silhouette of Zavok emerges, awaiting at the entrance to the next zone. The Crimson Wisp swirls away, and Sonic tells Tails to get to cover. Tails objects, but the determined Werehog assures his friend that this time things would be different. This fight, he emphasizes, is something he has to face alone. And that he does, walking ahead and stopping just 10 yards from Zavok. It's a standoff.
Back again, Sonic. You're just like Zamam, a glutton. For punishment, that is. What makes you think this'll go any different than before?
The Werehog smacks both his closed fists together. Simple. This time, I'll win. It seems Sonic's finally figured it out. Why Zavok has trounced him over and over. There's no trick to it. The answer is actually quite simple. Sonic isn't used to fighting conventionally. What I mean is, Sonic the Hedgehog's way of fighting is very freestyle, like a dance. He can fight, but he fights fast, using his speed to his advantage. As the Werehog, however, everything is turned on its head. Speed, gone. Usual technique rendered useless. Every move is like molasses, sluggish and ponderous. Ever since he first discovered his stretchy arms, he's just kind of made it up as he went along, involuntarily taking on a more feral approach to combat, thrashing, using his claws to hack and rip. And it's worked well. Until now. Zavok has been bred for hand-to-hand combat his entire life. He's trained in the pugilistic arts and honed those brawling skills, presumably for over 100 years. Sure, if Sonic was his speedy hedgehog self, he could mop up Zavok no problem. But in this state, Zavok's got the edge. The Werehog's wild attacks are easily anticipated by the Zeti's trained eyes. Sonic has realized that he needs to fight smarter, not harder. And as I mentioned back in part 4 of this What If there's one thing Sonic's good at, it's being crazy adaptable. He closes his eyes and visualizes his many battles with a certain friendly rival. Zavok then charges, his massive fist aimed at Sonic's head. He's not screwing around this time. He wants to get this done with quick. But at the last moment, Sonic ducks, slipping under Zavok's outstretched arm. He pivots and drives a punch into Zavok's midsection. The Zeti grunts, taken aback. The Werehog's finally landed a hit. His stance has changed, fists raised up, knees bent slightly, bouncing on his toes. He's emulating the fighting style of Knuckles. Sonic presses his advantage, moving not with reckless abandon, but the fluidity of a seasoned boxer. He weaves around Zavok's swings, delivering quick jabs and powerful hooks. A right hook connects with Zavok's temple, followed by a left cross that sends him staggering. The florid foe roars in frustration, his reprisals growing more desperate. Energy punches collide in a vibrant display, Zavok's red strikes meeting Sonic's purple. The battle escalates, both combatants pushing themselves to the limit. Zavok tries to derail Sonic with threats against Tails, but before he can finish the sentence, a spiked shoe sole comes up out of nowhere as Sonic kicks him square in the mouth. This, plus Zavok's own momentum, has Sonic place the brute into an arm lock and then gruesomely dislocates his shoulder with a resounding crack. Then, a final surge. He lifts Zavok like a red barbell before slamming him into the rocky ground and pummeling the Zeti till he lay unconscious, with several smoldering fist-shaped indents in his battered face and body. Finally, he beat him. Breathing heavily, the Werehog stands tall, adrenaline coursing through him before leaning back and letting out an echoing victory howl. Jumping forward, Sonic and Tails get to Lava Mountain, the air thick with the smell of sulfur. There's no sign of the other Zeti, and a conspicuous lack of badnik resistance. It leaves them uneasy. This could very well be a trap. They soon locate the extractor and approach the imposing structure. Tails notes that it seems to be inactive at the moment before correcting himself and telling Sonic to hang on. This is way different than what Eggman indicated, implying that the device has changed in some way compared to what he was shown or told. Suddenly, things take a turn as all 6 Zeti, including Zavok, arrive on the scene. Sonic tenses in preparation, ready to shut down the extractor and its deadly operators.
Ah, the guest of honor has arrived. You're throwing a party just for me, huh? Guess our earlier get-together was just the pregame. What was it you said? About things going no different than before? Don't mistake luck for skill. Our last dance was just to keep you busy. Until it was ready.
An ominous whirring sound fills the air as the extractor suddenly turns on. From it comes a massive funnel, like the mouth of a vacuum cleaner, extending towards Werehog Sonic. The funnel begins to respire, and Sonic feels an indescribable sensation, as if some part of his insides was being forcibly torn away. The dark Gaia energy within him explodes from his chest and is sucked up. The malevolent mist flows through the machine's pipes and into a distillation chamber, where it is condensed and converted into a liquid energy. Sonic, now a hedgehog once again, collapses to the ground, smoke coming off of him. A sudden release of built-up exhaustion hits him all at once, rendering him unable to move. What have you done to me?
Why, we've cured you. You should be grateful. We're lifting a burden that was obviously too much for you to handle. Now you can die an ordinary hedgehog.
He's lost the Werehog form. Finally, he's free from the curse that had haunted him. But at what cost? If you remember, Zavok and Zik were very intrigued by the demonic power they felt from Sonic, and after seeing him raise from the dead, oh yeah, that intrigue turned to desire. That power would be theirs, and now it is. Sonic's wanted it gone for so long. He should be happy, but not like this. He never wanted it to fall into the hands of monsters like them. Sonic tries to warn them of the consequences of using such an energy, but they just tell him to save his warnings for someone who cares. Tails questions how the extractor could siphon Dark Gaia's energy, specifically when that's not what it was designed to do. Specifically, this question is quickly answered by a surprise appearance. The figure of Dr. Robotnik steps forth next to the Zeti, but not the human scientist we know. He has been completely roboticized. Seems that without Sonic and Tails on his side, the Zeti caught up to him and ironically made him the victim of his own machinations, a slave to their will, just as he had enslaved them. Robo-Robotnik told them all about the Werehog. He provided them knowledge about Dark Gaia's energy, and the Zeti used him to reconfigure the extractor to target just that energy, using part of the same architecture that the Doctor used on that homing signal tower thing in Sonic Unleashed, which was also used on the Dark Gaia mind control helmet way back in part 1 of this What If. Now having got what they need from him, the Zeti callously smack the Eggbot aside, discarding him like an old toy. Zavok's grin widens as the extractor reactivates, its colossal nozzle now aiming at the world below. It's not just Sonic's bit of energy they want all of it. As the extractor begins to aspirate, its tank filling bit by bit with purple ooze, Sonic considers the catastrophic effects of such an act. As Chip once told him, Dark Gaia is integral to the Earth's natural balance. Draining it could have disastrous geological repercussions, or worse. Meanwhile, Zavok dispenses the share of liquid evil they just pulled from Sonic, dividing it out into several metal canisters like tumblers. Together, he and the Zeti make a toast to their revenge and the oncoming destruction, chinking their cups and guzzling down the fluid. Zavok states that he can feel his wounds healing already, all 6 reveling in the dark vigor pumping through their arteries. However, the celebration is short-lived. Agony twists their expressions as they clasp their heads, screaming. It seems they got a little more than they bargained for, and their power-up takes a horrifying turn. In an instant, their bodies discolor and contort into grotesque visages of teeth, spikes, and eyeballs, taking on the likeness of Dark Gaia spawn. Upon looking into one of the oversized green oculi, Sonic knows. Because the Deadly Six possess hearts full of evil, they've been completely and instantly taken over by Dark Gaia's influence. The enemy is no longer the Zeti. Sonic and Tails now face the manifestation of Dark Gaia itself. Their minds gone, the Nightmare Six begin to rampage, expelling energy blasts from their bodies which batter everything around them. And, as bad luck would have it, one of the things that's damaged in the onslaught is the extractor itself. Tails begins to panic, not because of these monsters, but because of the dire situation they're now in, something Eggman warned him about and mentioned in Lost World the game. With the extractor busted up and already locked into overload, the huge contraption has just become a ticking time bomb. Tails needs to manually reprogram it to prevent an explosion that could wipe out everything within a 100-mile radius. The immobilized Blue Blur attempts to rise, legs trembling, assuring Tails that he'll distract the malformed Zeti. But Tails steps in, knowing his big bro is just putting on a brave face yet again. Ignoring Sonic's protests, the Fox Boy leaps into the fray, and the demons set their sights solely on him. Tails has stood by up till now, feeling useless as he's forced to watch Sonic bottle up all his suffering for his sake. That night in Apatos comes to mind, when he ran from the Gaia spawn and Sonic had to save him. Now he must save Sonic. But even with all that wholesome determination, hope quickly dwindles. Tails is ganged up on and smacked out cold, his strongest attacks having had 0 effect. Sonic shouts frantically for them to leave his friend alone, straining with all his might to move his debilitated body. Zavok, paying no attention, clutches Tails by the head and lifts him like a rag doll. He then raises his other arm and brandishes his claws, readying to execute the defenseless boy. But then, just as Tails' fate seems sealed, at the last possible second, Sonic cries out, "Leave him alone!" Sonic's body briefly pulses ominous dark shades. His voice reverberates with desperation and anger, sending forth a shockwave. This rare show of such pure animosity fades into the sooty air as Sonic pants. But it's enough to make the Nightmare Six pause and just stare on the downed hedgehog. He can't take them. He's still too weak to fight, so he chooses a different approach while he has their attention. He speaks to them, attempting to negotiate with Dark Gaia directly, with the atrocious essence that formerly resided in him. I'll make you a deal. Let Tails go, and you can have me. We both know I'm the one you really want, and you know how bad I've wanted you gone, so you can rest assured when I say this. I'll never try to get rid of you ever again. I swear. Take me. Just spare my buddy. This is Sonic's bargaining piece, offering himself in exchange for Tails. He's sort of banking on the notion that he's a stronger vessel for Dark Gaia than the Deadly Six, and hopes that the ancient deity shares this opinion. Heck, he isn't even sure if it can understand him. This is simply his last possible play. A tense silence envelops the scene as the devils stare into Sonic's eyes. Then, finally, Zavok answers. But it's not Zavok who's speaking.
The pact is bound. What has been sacrificed will never be returned.
With that declamation, dark purple smoke billows out from each of the Zeti's chests, returning them to their normal forms, as one by one each of them collapse in languor, awash with exhaustion from the hellacious ordeal they've just been put through, something Sonic has endured numerous times up to now. The dark vapor fragments coalesce in midair before flowing downwards, returning to Sonic's innards and turning him back into the Werehog. He's still in searing pain, but his strength has returned. To prevent the loss of lives, both friends and foes alike, he has to act swiftly. The extractor is perilously close to detonation and filled with volatile Dark Gaia juice. He can't just dislodge it from the hex and let it fall, as the blast radius would decimate the land below. By that process of elimination, there's only one other place it can go. The Werehog leaps to the top of a nearby spire and coils his stretchy arms around the mammoth machine. He summons all his residual strength and enters into unleashed mode once again as he pulls, breaking the extractor loose from its fastens, and executes a Werehog hammer throw, swinging it round and round 360 degrees at tremendous speed. Then, with a mighty pivot and heave, he throws the entire thing above, sending it hurtling high into the sky. The extractor ascends, rocketing through the cold expanse to the edge of the exosphere, and just in the nick of time, it erupts with close to 1,000 megaton yield, dispersing the clouds, quaking the lost hex, and filling the horizon with an immense, blinding display. Having averted the crisis, Sonic anxiously books it over to Tails. As he reaches out to ensure his pal's breathing, a sudden glint catches his eye. He didn't notice it before, but there's something stuck to his arm. At first glance, he mistakes it for Chip's bracelet, until realization sets in. Chip's bracelet is on his left arm. What he's looking at is on his right. A golden restraint with deep purple-hued jewels and thorns has materialized on his other wrist. A weight seems to settle heavily on Sonic's shoulders as he processes. Already, he knows what this is and what it means. The ominous accessory symbolizes the deal Sonic has struck with Dark Gaia, a Faustian contract, the agreement to be with the Dark God forevermore. This is Dark Gaia's shackle. An inexplicable sensation then overcomes the Werehog. Like a switch was just flicked off inside him. He feels faint before toppling forward onto his front, out like a light. And speaking of light, Sonic's no longer aware, but by coincidence or otherwise, the once murky stone atop Chip's bracelet has suddenly began flashing. And that's where we're gonna end this story for right now. So, what did you guys think? How'd you like the fights with Zavok and Sonic's self-learning to properly throw hands in order to contend with him? How about the Nightmare 6, the result of them pilfering all that Gaia gravy? Sonic was almost free of the Werehog, but he just had to hang on to it in order to save Tails. And now he's made a pact to keep it? With him down for the count, with a brand new bracelet no less, what kind of new dilemmas do you think he'll eventually wake up to? Please share your thoughts with me in the comments. I've been the Sega Scourge, and I'll see you guys in the next Sonic What If. Take care.